They only turned location sharing on because of one stupid argument. Nothing dramatic, just one of those late-night couple fights that start small and somehow becomes about trust. He said she disappeared for hours without replying. She said he always assumed the worst when she needed space. By the end of it, both of them were tired, irritated, and trying to sound more reasonable than they felt. So she opened her phone, went into the app, and said, "Fine, I'll just share it all the time. Happy?" He laughed a little, like he knew he should say no, but he didn't, and that was how it started. At first, it actually made things easier. Less checking in, less passive-aggressive texting. If she was still at work, he could see that. If he was driving home, she knew how far away he was. The tension between them softened. It made them feel weirdly closer, like transparency had fixed something. For almost 3 weeks, nothing happened. Then, on a Thursday morning, she woke up to 3 missed calls from him. Time, 4:12 a.m., 4:14 a.m., 4:17 a.m., and one message. "Why were you at Greenbridge Station last night?" She read it twice, still half asleep, then sat up, because she had been home. She was sure of it. In bed by 11, phone on charge, lights out before midnight. She called him immediately. He picked up on the first ring. "You seriously don't remember?" he asked. "Remember what?" A pause. Then he said, slower this time, "I woke up around 4, checked my phone, your location was moving." Her expression tightened. "What do you mean moving?" "I mean moving," he said, "like walking, from your apartment toward Greenbridge Station." She pushed the blanket off and stood up. The room suddenly felt colder. "That's not possible." "I know," he said. "That's why I kept watching." She didn't answer. He kept going. "At first, I thought maybe the app glitched, but it wasn't jumping around. It followed streets, turned corners, stopped at crosswalks. It moved like a person." Her grip tightened around the phone. "Then where did it stop?" Silence. Too long. When he finally answered, his voice had changed. Smaller. "It didn't stop at the station." Another pause. "It went below it." She didn't speak for a few seconds, just stood there barefoot in her bedroom, phone pressed to her ear, trying to fit his words into reality. "It went below it" didn't make sense. Not literally, not in a way her mind wanted to accept. "What do you mean, below it?" she asked. On the other end, he exhaled slowly. "The dot reached Greenbridge. Then it stopped near the entrance for maybe 30 seconds. After that, it shifted." "Shifted how?" "Like it dropped off the map level," he said. "The streets disappeared and the pin moved into that gray transit area, platform level, maybe lower. I don't know." Her stomach tightened, because he wasn't the type to dramatize things. That was part of why they worked, most of the time. He overthought, she dismissed. Usually they balanced each other out. But right now he sounded measured. Too measured. "You were probably looking at bad map rendering," she said. And even to herself, it sounded weak. "That's what I told myself," he said. "Until it stayed there." "How long?" Another pause. 22 minutes. She looked at her phone charger. Her phone was still plugged in beside the bed, exactly where she'd left it. "I was home," she said, quieter now. "I know." That answer scared her more than disbelief would have. Not "you're wrong," not "that's impossible," just "I know." She unlocked her phone and opened the location app. Shared history. Last night. Her fingers slowed. There it was, a pale blue route leaving her apartment building at 3:41 a.m., moving south, crossing 2 streets, continuing all the way to Greenbridge Station, then stopping, then a cluster of location points stacked close together beneath the main station icon, as if the device had remained underground. Return route, beginning at 4:09 a.m., back to her building by 4:27 a.m. Her mouth went dry. because the app agreed with him. Every turn, every stop, every timestamp, documented cleanly. "No," she said, barely above a whisper. He heard it. "Yeah." She opened her step counter next, then froze again. A spike in movement between 3:38 a.m. and 4:29 a.m. Not enough for a workout, just steady walking. Her breathing changed, because now there were two records, independent, matching, location and motion, as if her phone hadn't simply moved, as if she had. He spoke again, carefully. "There's something else." She closed her eyes for a second. Of course there was. What? He said, "When the location came back to your building, I took screenshots. I wanted to show you in the morning in case it reset or disappeared." She waited. Then he said, "When I zoomed in on one of them, there was a label on the lower station level." "What label?" His voice dropped. "Service Tunnel B." Something cold moved through her, not because she knew the tunnel, because she didn't. And yet the words landed with the shape of something familiar, like hearing a phrase from a dream you forgot 5 minutes after waking. She went back into the map and pinched open the station view. Street level, platforms, transit overlays. Nothing unusual. No Service Tunnel B. No underground label like the one he described. "It's not here now," she said. "I know," he replied. "It wasn't on the public map when I checked later either." She turned toward the bedroom door without meaning to, suddenly aware of how quiet the apartment was. Kitchen, hallway, living room, all normal, all hers, and yet the route on the screen had started and ended from inside this space. "Did you call me while it was moving?" she asked. "Yeah, 3 times." "Why didn't it wake me?" He didn't answer right away. Then, very softly, "Maybe it did." She looked down at the screen again. At 3:52 a.m., halfway to the station, one tiny event marker sat on the route history. Not a stop, not a turn, a note icon. She tapped it. The app opened a small travel event summary. One line, auto-generated, pause detected 47 seconds, location, pedestrian underpass entrance. And beneath that, something stranger, audio activity recorded. She stared at the words. Audio activity recorded. Location apps weren't supposed to say things like that. Not in normal route history. Distance, traffic, pauses, battery level maybe. But audio activity? Her thumb hovered over the event marker, then tapped. A small panel expanded beneath it. No waveform, no playback icon, just metadata. 3:52:14 a.m. Sound threshold crossed. 3:52:26 a.m. Second voice detected. 3:53:01 a.m. Movement resumed. Her pulse kicked hard. "Second voice?" he said, the moment she read it out loud. She hadn't even realized she had. He went quiet for half a beat, then, "Can you send me a screenshot?" She did. 3 dots appeared immediately. Stopped. Then he called instead. When she answered, his voice had changed. Less confusion now, more strain. "I didn't want to tell you this before I was sure," he said. Her jaw tightened. "Tell me what?" "When I saw your dot stop near the station, I zoomed in. I took screenshots, right?" He exhaled. "I looked at them again this morning." And there were 2 location markers for a few seconds, not one. She said nothing, because she already knew she was going to hate the answer. "One was your phone," he said. "The other one appeared right beside it after the pause." She sat down slowly on the edge of the bed. "What kind of marker?" "I don't know. Smaller, gray. No profile photo, no name." His voice dropped. "But it moved with you when the route started again." The room seemed to narrow around her. "Moved with me?" "Close behind at first," he said, then side by side. She looked toward the bedroom mirror. Her own reflection looked normal. hair messy, t-shirt twisted from sleep, bare feet on hardwood. And yet the route on her phone now felt less like data and more like surveillance footage she couldn't watch. She opens the timeline again, zooming into the pause point at the underpass entrance. Nothing visible except the usual blue path and the small note icon. No gray marker, no second device, no trace. "It's not there now," she said. "I know." Again, that answer. Calm, flat, like he'd already moved past denial and was waiting for her to catch up. She stood and started walking through the apartment with the phone in one hand. Bedroom, hallway, kitchen, checking things without knowing what she was checking for. The front door was still locked, chain untouched, no muddy prints, no bag out of place, no dropped keys, nothing cinematic, nothing obvious. Just the deep wrongness of records insisting on an event her body didn't remember. "Maybe someone had your phone," he said carefully. She stopped in the kitchen. "No, you can't know that. My phone was on charge." "You said that, but if you were walking with it—" "I was not walking." Silence. Not angry silence. Worse. Controlled silence. Because now the fight underneath the fear was starting to surface. If she hadn't gone, then either he was mistaken, the apps were wrong, or something had happened to her without her knowing. None of those options were good. One of them was personal. He spoke first. "Do you remember anything from last night?" She almost said no, then stopped. A tiny thing flickered. Not memory exactly. A sensation. Cold air. Tile under shoes. A fluorescent hum. Gone almost as soon as it appeared. Her grip tightened on the phone. "No," she said. "Anyway." He heard the hesitation. "You paused." "I'm tired." That's not what I asked. Now there it was. The relationship crack opening inside the fear. She leaned against the counter. "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything." "You kind of are." He exhaled. "I'm saying this looks bad in every direction." That landed harder than she expected, because he was right. If the route was real, she had gone somewhere underground at 4 a.m. and remembered none of it. If the route wasn't real, then someone or something had generated a perfect fake path, complete with motion data and voice detection. And if he was wrong, no, she knew he wasn't inventing this. He didn't sound suspicious. He sounded scared. That scared her more. "Send me the screenshots," she said. A second later, they came through. She opens the first. A standard map view of Greenbridge Station at night mode zoom. Her blue location dot near the entrance. Timestamp at the top. Second screenshot. The dot lower now, inside the station footprint. A faint label near the bottom edge of the image. Service Tunnel B. Third screenshot. She felt her stomach drop. Because he'd been telling the truth. There, just to the left of her blue dot, was a second marker. Smaller. Gray. No label. No name. And though it was only a static image, the spacing between them felt intimate in a way that made her skin cold. Not chasing, not distant. Walking beside her. Then she noticed something else in the screenshot. A tiny battery symbol next to her location share. 12%. She turned slowly toward the bedroom, to the charger, to the phone in her hand. It was at 86% now. She checked battery usage. Overnight activity between 3:37 a.m. and 4:31 a.m. Screen on. Location active. Microphone active. Then charging resumed. Her mouth went dry. Because that meant whoever or whatever brought the phone back had plugged it in again. Softly, almost to herself, she said, "It put my phone back." He was quiet for a second. Then, "I'm coming over." She should have said yes immediately. Instead, she asked, "Why?" That pause between them was tiny, but brutal. Finally, he answered, "Because if you didn't do this, then you weren't alone." And before she could respond, another notification slid onto her screen. No app icon, no sound, just one line. They both went silent. She stared at the notification. Next shared movement tonight. Not next location update, not travel prediction. Shared movement. Like whatever had happened at Greenbridge wasn't over. Like it had happened with her and someone else and was scheduled to happen again. "Read that to me," he said. She did. He didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower. "Don't delete it." "I wasn't going to." Screenshot everything. She already had. The route, the battery usage, the gray marker, the strange system message. Still, doing it again made her hands shake harder. Because screenshots turn fear into evidence, and evidence makes things feel less imagined but more real. She moved through the apartment checking locks while he stayed on the line. Deadbolt, chain, balcony door, bathroom window. Everything secured. Everything normal. That was the problem now. Normality had become suspicious. At 6:42 p.m., he arrived. She opened the door before he knocked. The moment he stepped inside, neither of them hugged. Neither said, "You okay?" They just looked at each other like both were waiting to see whether the other one seemed guilty, irrational, or afraid. He was carrying coffee and trying to act calm. That made her trust him a little more. They sat at the table and went through everything in order. His screenshots first, then her app logs, then battery activity, then the weird route event with second voice detected. He zoomed in on the map again. "There," he said quietly. She leaned closer. The gray marker was easier to ignore at a glance, harder when you actually looked, because it wasn't centered like a user dot. It sat slightly behind hers, offset, intentional, almost like a tracked companion object rather than a person. "You think that's another phone?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, "I think I want it to be another phone." That landed heavy between them. She opened her own share settings, contact permissions, background access, emergency services, nothing unusual. Then she scrolled lower and stopped. A linked feature she had never turned on was active, enhanced safety pairing. Under it, a line in smaller text, "Movement anomalies may be mirrored to trusted contacts." He leaned in. "Mirrored?" She tapped it. A blank white page loaded, then a configuration screen with almost no branding, no company name, no help button, only toggles and tiny gray text. Sleep state routes continuity, companion shadow detection, behavioral divergence alerting. Neither of them spoke for a second. Finally, he said, "That's not a normal feature." "No." She tapped companion shadow detection. The app opened a detail panel. One sentence sat in the middle of the screen like it belonged there, like it had always been there. Flags parallel movement patterns when a second path remains within interpersonal range without device registration. Her chest tightened. No device registration. So the gray marker in his screenshot hadn't been another shared phone, or at least the app didn't think it was. She looked at him. He looked back at her. And for the first time all day, something uglier crept into the room than fear, because there was now a question neither of them wanted to say out loud. If the system tracked her route and detected a second moving presence without device registration, what exactly had walked beside her? He broke eye contact first. "Okay," he said, too quickly, shifting into practical mode. She nodded. That made sense. Simple, human, controllable. They ordered food they didn't really eat, turned on lights in every room, kept both phones on the table between them. Every hour they checked the app. No movement, no new alerts. By 11:30 p.m., the adrenaline had worn thin and left behind something worse: fatigue. Real, physical, dragging fatigue. She stood up to make coffee and nearly knocked into the counter. He saw it. "You need to sit." "I'm fine." "You're not." Neither was he. His eyes were red, his voice was flatter now. They were both running on nerves. At 12:07 p.m., her phone buzzed once. Both of them flinched. New notification, no icon, no sound. Shared movement window approaching. Remain cooperative to reduce distress. He swore under his breath. Her chest felt cold all over, because that wording, reduce distress, sounded clinical, not emotional, like whatever was speaking through the app believed it was managing an event, not causing one. He stood and reached for her phone. The moment he picked it up, his own phone lit up too. Same message, different second line. She read his over her shoulder. Partner deviation historically increases subject panic. Her expression changed. Historically? He looked at her, then slowly set both phones back down. Neither said it, but both heard the same thing in that word. This had not happened only once, or at least whatever system was messaging them believed it had data from prior attempts. She went into her health app, sleep quality history, resting heart rate, night disturbances. Most nights looked normal. Then she checked the last 6 weeks. 3 dates lit up with unusual gaps. Not as long as last night, but there. Tiny missing blocks between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. On 2 of those same nights, her step counter showed low but steady movement, the same pattern. Her mouth dried. There were other nights. He came around the table and looked. How many? 3, maybe 4. He said nothing, because now the implications had shifted again. This wasn't one impossible night. It was a pattern they'd only noticed once it became obvious enough to scare them. She opened shared location history for those dates. Most of the routes were missing, unavailable, data expired. But one thumbnail preview still remained for a night 2 weeks ago. She tapped it. The route loaded halfway and hung, just enough to show her building, just enough to show movement south, and just enough to show the destination label before the map failed. Not Greenbridge Station this time. A different place. He read it out first, quietly. Riverside. Apartments. She stared at the screen. Riverside. His building. The air in the room changed. Slowly, carefully, she looked up at him. He had already gone still, because now there was only one reason a hidden overnight route from her phone would end there, at his place, at 3:18 a.m., on a night he'd texted her the next morning, "You fell asleep so early last night, LOL." He swallowed once, then said, "I thought you were home." Another notification slid onto both phones, this one longer, cold, precise. Previous visit to partner residence produced lower resistance, repeating successful route tonight. And before either of them could speak, there was a soft sound from the hallway outside her apartment. Not knocking, not footsteps, just the gentle, unmistakable, metallic click of someone testing the door handle once. Neither of them moved. That tiny metallic click at the door was somehow worse than pounding would have been, because pounding is emotion, force, panic. This sounded procedural, like someone checking a condition already expected to be true. Her boyfriend looked at the door, then at her, then very slowly reached for the heavy ceramic mug on the table, as if even that small movement shouldn't be heard. Another sound, not the handle this time, a soft scrape near the bottom of the door. Both of them froze harder. She stepped closer, careful, and looked at the floor. A shadow interrupted the thin strip of hallway light beneath the door. Still, standing there, not shifting weight, not pacing, just occupying the other side. Her throat tightened. He mouthed, "Call the police." She grabs her phone. The screen lit up before she could unlock it. No icon, no app, just text. Emergency response increases escalation risk. She nearly threw it. His phone buzzed too. He looked down, face draining. "What?" she whispered. He swallowed. "It says, you called once before. It complicated recovery." A cold shock moved through her. Once before. Again that phrase. Again the implication that this had happened in earlier versions, earlier attempts, earlier nights they had not held on to long enough to fear. She opened the call screen anyway, started to dial. The keypad vanished, replaced with a white panel. Partner presence remained stabilizing. Stay inside. He snatched the phone from her hand and killed the screen. For a second it stayed black, then lit again by itself. Camera open, rear facing, pointed straight at the apartment door. On-screen overlay text, "Do not interrupt threshold approach." He swore and turned it face down. The scrape came again, longer this time, like paper being pushed under the door. She waited. Nothing else. After a few seconds, she crouched carefully and saw a folded piece of white paper resting on the floor inside the apartment. No one had forced entry. No one had knocked. They had just delivered something. Her boyfriend shook his head immediately. Don't touch it. She hated that he was right. Instead, she used a kitchen spatula to drag it closer. A single printed sheet. No handwriting, no logo. Just one paragraph in a clean sans serif font. Shared movement succeeds when subjects accept continuity. Resistance produces fragmentation, panic, and false interpersonal suspicion. If you remain together, route correction will be shorter tonight. She read it once, then again, and suddenly the most frightening part wasn't the hallway shadow, it was the language. False interpersonal suspicion, as if the system knew exactly where to press. Not only fear of an intruder, but fear of each other. She looked up at him. He was already looking at her, and they both understood the same ugly thing at the same time. Whatever was happening had probably relied on doubt between them before. A missing night can become cheating. A strange route can become lying. Unexplained exhaustion can become distance. All of it easier to live with than the idea that something had been moving one of them around while both slept. He spoke first, quiet and tight. "It wanted us to fight." She nodded once, because now that he said it, some recent arguments rearranged themselves in her memory with a new shape. The weird mornings, the emotional flatness after nights neither of them could account for, the time he swore she had almost come over and then stopped replying, the time she accused him of pulling back when he seemed genuinely confused. Not random, not relationship decay, interference. Her phone vibrated again, against the wood table this time, loud enough for both of them to flinch. A new message covered the screen. Memory drift increasing, restoring context. Before either could react, her photo app opened by itself. An album neither of them had seen before appeared at the top. Shared nights. She tapped it with numb fingers. 23 images, time-stamped over the last 7 weeks. Most were dark, motion blurred, badly framed, but still clear enough. Her building hallway at 3:11 a.m., a wet sidewalk, station entrance lighting, his apartment lobby, their own backs captured from a slight distance, as if whoever took the photos had been walking behind them. Then one image stopped her breathing. Her and her boyfriend standing side by side outside Greenbridge Station. Night. Both upright, both awake-looking, and between them, empty space. Not because no one was there, because the framing made it obvious someone had been there and had been cropped out badly, leaving only a dark sleeve at the edge of the shot. Her boyfriend took the phone from her without asking and swiped faster. More images. The underpass entrance, a corridor tile wall, her leaning slightly towards something outside frame, like she was listening to. Then the last image in the album, time-stamped 2 weeks ago, 3:24 a.m., location tag, Riverside Apartments. It showed his apartment door from inside the hallway, door half open, him standing there in a t-shirt, eyes unfocused, like someone half awake, and her, already inside, looking back toward the camera, her face blank, not scared, not conscious looking exactly, compliant. He went pale, because whatever explanation he had been clinging to, sleepwalking, app corruption, location bugs, couldn't survive an image like that. He whispered, "I never remembered opening the door." She took the phone back and zoomed into the background. At the far end of the hallway, reflected in the metal elevator trim, there was a figure. Tall, still, too far to resolve, but there, watching. Her hand started shaking hard now, not from uncertainty, from evidence, real enough to break denial, unreal enough to break reason. Then something changed in the apartment, small, electrical. The hallway light near her front door flickered once, then twice, then steadied. A second later, both phones displayed the same new line. Threshold access failed. Begin internal route. Her boyfriend looked around first. Internal route? She followed his gaze. Living room, kitchen, bedroom hallway, bathroom. The map of her home suddenly existed in her mind the way the station had, not as rooms, but as a path. And right on cue, from somewhere deeper inside the apartment, past the bedroom, came a soft sound. One of the floorboards moved, not near them, ahead of them, as if someone was already inside. They froze. The soft floorboard creak continued, deliberate, paced, moving closer to the bedroom doorway. Her boyfriend's hand found hers instinctively, gripping tight. She could feel his pulse hammering. "Stay calm," he whispered, but his voice trembled. "Whatever it is, it's following the route." "Route?" she repeated, barely above a breath. The notification appeared on both phones simultaneously, white text against black. Internal route activated. Follow path to maintain synchronization. Neither of them moved, neither could. The apartment, every familiar corner felt suddenly unfamiliar. The walls seemed closer, the air heavier, as if the space itself were being rearranged around them. Her eyes flicked to the first bedroom door, then the hallway. The soft creak came again, closer now, and she noticed something terrifying. The shadow beneath the doorway didn't belong to either of them. It paused, almost listening, then moved forward with a soft scraping sound, exactly in sync with the vibration of her phone. Her boyfriend whispered, "It's mirroring us. Everything we do, it mirrors, exactly." She realized then the horrifying truth. This wasn't someone entering. This wasn't a person in the conventional sense. This was the system itself, guiding, predicting, orchestrating their movements inside their own home. A second notification arrived, chilling in its clinical detachment. Deviation detected. Corrective guidance will initiate immediately. The floorboard creaked again, now right outside the bedroom. Both of them were frozen, hearts hammering. Her phone glowed again, this time revealing a semi-transparent map overlay of their apartment, with tiny blue and gray dots moving along the floor in real time. One dot was her, one was him, and then one more. The gray dot moved deliberately behind them, tracing every step as if it had existed in the room all along. She whispered, "It, it knows us. It's been watching us inside our own home." He shook his head, pale, breathing fast. "We're not alone, not by choice." Another notification slid silently onto the screens. Compliance ensures minimal distress. Resistance will fragment behavioral cohesion. The lights flickered violently, then steadied. The soft creak became a dragging sound, as if something heavy was moving through the hallway, keeping pace with the gray dot on their phones. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a single line appeared. Primary subject engaged. Begin next sequence. She felt her knees weaken. He gripped her hand tighter. Then, as one, they realized the sequence didn't just involve the apartment anymore. It involved them, their actions, their memory, their very will. The last image on the shared album from 2 weeks ago flashed in her mind. Herself, compliant, looking back at someone, something, watching. And now she understood. The gray presence had never left. It had been inside their home, inside their lives, guiding, predicting, waiting for the exact moment to resume. The floorboard moved again. The sound came closer. And from somewhere deep inside the hallway, a whisper, mechanical, calm, unhuman, reached her ears. Begin. The last thing they saw before the bedroom door slowly creaked open was the faint outline of a figure, or a projection, emerging from the shadows, moving with impossible precision, synchronized perfectly with the gray dot on their phones. And then the lights went out.